Chapter 166 to 168. In a void filled with nothing but white you could see various pieces of rubble floating around, and if you were to go deeper into the void, the number of debris increases. However, you would also find scattered bodies floating right next to the rubble. Upon closer inspection of the bodies, you would notice they were all from various species with how different their physiques were, yet one thing they all had in common was how incredibly injured they were, with their crushed bones, bloodied bodies, and amputated limbs. Some of them even showed signs of being in a comatose. Now even deeper into the void, you could find the sole person responsible for everything, as he is currently surrounded by dense rubble along with a large crystal vault. ________________________ Blocking a punch from my opponent, I counterattacked with a kick, yet I didn't realize I had fallen into my opponent's trap. He grabbed my leg, which threw my balance off, and that allowed him to hit me right in the chin, knocking me unconscious. Opening my eyes, I find myself laying down staring straight into a bright light, forcing me to close my eyes in pain, before opening them once again. Aaron - so you finally woke up. You've been asleep for a few minutes now. Grunting, I grab my head and slowly sit up before grabbing the water bottle my father was holding out to me and started drinking. Jake - yeah, looks like he hit me good, ha, great, now my career record is 5 wins, 7 ties, and 12 losses. As much as I enjoy kickboxing, it just really isn't cut out for me, is it, father? Aaron - well, I don't want to be the one to tell you that, son, but honestly, that's what it looks like. However, just because you're not that talented at kickboxing, that doesn't mean you can't play it as a hobby, but if you wish to continue pursuing it, you know I'll support you. Now tell me, where is Tokitoki? Jake - nah, I think it's time to put my dream to rest. I love and enjoy fighting, but if I'm having this much trouble in just some amateur leagues, going professional is out of the question. I'll have to find another job, and start kicking boxing as a hobby. You think I'd willingly tell you that, fool? I'd rather die. Setting the water bottle down, I stand up and start taking off my gloves before walking over to my backpack and putting them away. After that, I quickly change my clothes and head out of the changing room with father. Aaron - so, since you've decided to pursue another job as your career, got anything in mind? I won't ask you another time, where is Tokitoki? Jake - yeah, my friend James said he could hook me up with an office job, and he said it pays well for a newbie, so I plan on doing that for a while, and who knows what else. Alright, fine, that's how you want to play it, let's see how long it takes until I change your mind. Aaron - well, it's good you already planned ahead, but if it ever gets tough, you know there is always room for you back at the house. Jake - I know, father, you practically mention it all the time. Aaron - well, excuse me for trying to look out for my son, maybe I should go find another young man who'll appreciate my support. I just chuckled at his response with a shake of my head as we continued talking while heading to get some lunch. _______________________ Waking up from that dream I had, I slowly opened my eyes only to be met with the color white, yet I didn't care about that as I was too busy trying to focus on the state of my body while also dealing with the intense pain. My body is in terrible condition, but the pain is even worse. Demigra's key must have some type of property that enhances the pain felt or something, because throughout my whole life I've never dealt with pain this bad. Hearing screaming in the distance, I look towards the direction where it's coming from and see a nearly dead Demigra holding Cronoa by the hair while doing something to her that causes intense pain. Even though I would like to go and help her, in my condition, there is nothing I can do, even staying conscious is a task in itself currently. Sensing movement near me, I slowly turn my head around and find a Mini 21 trying to stand up on some rubble. With difficulty, I fly over to her and lay my body next to the small piece of rubble. Sage - so what do we do now? 21, you're the smartest among us, so you got to have something. 21 - I'm intelligent, not all-knowing. I have no idea what we can do to stop him. I expected that, but I still had some hope in my heart that she would somehow have something. Slowly reaching into my pocket wishing to grab a senzu bean, it took me a minute to realize that while my pants may heal themselves after getting destroyed, the senzu beans don't get that privilege. Demigra - tch, you've got quite the tenacious mind, Cronoa, I'll give you that, but for your information, I've been preparing for this day even before I was sealed. So of course I've made plans in case I couldn't get my hands on Tokitoki, which means you are no longer needed. Hearing Demigra, I tried standing up, but by the time I had managed to do so, Cronoa had already been killed by Demigra, her body being completely disintegrated. I then saw Demigra create a portal from which a bird that resembled Tokitoki flew out. However, he was completely different in color and aura, though the bird didn't matter much as shortly after it appeared, it was killed by Demigra. Demigra - a pity, I wished I could have used Tokotoki instead, but it seems I can't have everything go my way, however that'll change once I become the true god. Demigra then grabbed a hold of the dead bird and ripped out its heart before eating it, though when I saw how all of the injuries he had accumulated from the previous battles get healed up, I truly felt defeated. Sage dash, so, is Demigra really about to become a god? 21 dash, that's what it looks like unless you have some sort of idea. Sage dash, I wouldn't call it an idea, more like a desperate last attempt than anything, and it most likely won't work anyways. 21 dash, well then hurry up and start it, Demigra's about to start attacking the time vault. While the healed Demigra was in the process of destroying the time vault, Mini 21 and I slowly flew around and gathered, Kakarot, and both Vegetas before carefully waking them up since we didn't wish for them to get even more injured than they currently were. Goku dash, ugh, I feel terrible. Vegeta dash, this pain is unbearable, what did Demigra do to us? Vegeta dash, I can barely even move my body, I haven't been this injured since Namek. Trunks dash, ugh, Sage, 21, where is Kranoa and how bad is the situation? When Trunks asked that question, the other three went quiet and looked over at us. 21 dash, Kranoa is dead, however, what's worse is that Demigra has managed to fully heal and he's about to destroy the time vault. The moment she finished speaking, I could see how everyone's faces showed signs of desperation, while Trunks on the other hand looked more angry than desperate. Vegeta dash, so, we lost, huh? Vegeta dash, tch, stop that nonsense, as long as we're still alive we haven't lost yet. Goku dash, I agree with you Vegeta, but with our situation, how do you expect us to fight? Even talking is a struggle itself, let alone fighting, we can't win every battle Vegeta. Trunks dash, so all we can do now is wait until we get erased? Sage dash, probably, but before we do, there is something I want to attempt first. Vegeta dash, tsk, at this point I'll agree with anything, so lay it on us. Sage dash, I wish to try the Super Saiyan God ritual. I could see signs of surprise and hope appear on their face, though that was quickly replaced with sadness. Vegeta dash, it's honestly not a bad idea, but we don't have enough candidates, we're missing one, so it won't work. Sage dash, yeah, but 21 can be a substitute, and while she may not be a Saiyan, she does have Saiyan DNA, so there's a possibility it might work. That's why I said it's a desperate last attempt, we've got nothing to lose, so might as well give it a try. After that, no one bothered trying to stop my crazy idea, and after getting into a circle we all held our hands together, while everyone started transferring their ki into my body, beginning the Super Saiyan God ritual. When everyone's ki arrived in my body, I could sense how everyone's ki except 21's joined with my own ki easily, and while at first 21's ki was very chaotic, it was suppressed by everyone's ki until it eventually calmed down and joined together with the rest. Once that happened, I could feel something special begin happening with my ki, however, while that happened I suddenly sensed a presence appear in my body, I didn't know what it was or where it came from, though it didn't matter as I was immediately about to force out of my body. Dash, calm down young Saiyan, in order for the ritual to succeed, I am needed. I don't remember this ever being mentioned when Kakarot explained to me the process of undergoing the ritual, however, through my past life knowledge, I've heard and read about rumors of the first Super Saiyan God's spirit is needed for the ritual to succeed. Sage Yamoshi. Yamoshi, I'm surprised, you actually knew my name, the last one who did this ceremony, didn't even notice my presence, let alone know about me. Sage, well, as much as I would be interested in talking to you, can you hurry up the ritual, the fate of reality is kinda resting on whether this can succeed or not. Yamoshi, I know, that's why I'm going as fast as I can, but I've only just finished a quarter of it, your mortal ki is far greater than the previous user, so it's going to take time to, however, there is some bad news about the ritual. Sage, don't tell me it won't work. Yamoshi, no, it'll work, but not fully. You see, this ritual is only supposed to work with 6 righteous Saiyans, however, there are only 4, you and that woman are not considered righteous like the other 3. So the ritual will only be half completed at best. Sage, if that's true, shouldn't the ritual not work at all? Yamoshi, normally you're correct, but by sacrificing my spirit, I can substitute the remaining 2 Saiyans, but even so, it won't count as a true ritual, so you won't fully ascend into godhood like me or the previous user. Sage, so then was this ritual a waste or not? Yamoshi, let me quickly explain, the ritual is meant to ascend a Saiyan's ki, body, and soul into godhood, your ki is currently in the process of that right now, and somehow your soul is even more powerful than a god's, however, that is good, otherwise this ritual wouldn't even work in the first place. The problem is your body will stay mortal, and a mortal's body simply can't contain God Ki. Even though you have probably the strongest physique among Saiyans, you are no different, your body will be destroyed from trying to contain God Ki. Sage, so this ritual really was pointless. Yamoshi, I wouldn't say pointless, as even though your body will be destroyed, it won't be immediate, you'll still be capable of killing that man if you're quick enough. However, just a heads up, the more power you use the faster your body will be destroyed. Sage, so all I must do is kill Demigra quickly, that should be doable, hopefully. Yamoshi, it seems it's time for me to truly disappear. It was an enjoyable last chat, but I've got nothing left, my spirit is already gone, I just hope you can manage to destroy that man. The moment he went quiet, I felt the ki within my body suddenly go silent before erupting violently as it started ravaging the inside of my body, and as painful as it was, it couldn't compare to the pain I felt that Demigra inflicted on me. Sage, I will kill him, Yamoshi. Opening my eyes, the first thing I notice is how the injuries I had accumulated disappeared, though with that God Ki inside me it wouldn't take long for those to appear again. However, the amount of power that I felt in my control was otherworldly, to say the least. I could feel the illusory constraints of time around me nearly collapse with just a simple wave of my hand. With this power, I had a feeling that I could destroy an entire timeline if I truly wished to. Sage, now I understand what Kakarot meant when he said he never knew a world like this existed. As much as I wanted to test my power, I could feel the time limit placed on me by my own body, and with an estimate, I could probably live for another hour currently, but I'm barely even using any strength, so I'm sure my fight with Demigra would cause it to massively decrease. 21. It seemed like the ritual was a success, now stop wasting time and go and confront Demigra. After giving everyone a look, I smirked and flashed away from my spot, moving so quickly that I had momentarily caused a hole in the timeline to appear before it repaired itself. Landing next to Demigra, who had almost managed to destroy the time vault, he quickly turned around when he noticed my arrival, though he didn't look intimidated one bit. Demigra, it seems like you somehow tried becoming a god yet only succeeded halfway. Even if I don't kill you, your own power will destroy your body, which I find quite humorous. Sage, you're right about that, I don't have much longer to live, but that's fine, I'll have already killed you before I've reached my limit, so there's no need to fret. Smirking at him, I get into my one and only fighting stance and prepare to charge at him. Demigra, so be it, after killing you, there will finally be no one who will stop my plan to become a true god. With a wave of Demigra's staff, he prepared himself as well, then a second later, we both charged right at each other, starting the last battle that'll decide the fate of reality. Charging at Demigra, once we arrived near each other, I blocked the staff he attacked me with, while also kicking him in the stomach. He backed away just in time to dodge my kick, but I wasn't finished, as I shot a ki blast at him from the bottom of my foot, which he didn't manage to dodge in time. Sage, God Ki really is something, it took me practically no effort to form that ki blast. With a smirk, I flashed behind Demigra, who had just gotten his bearings, and tried kicking him in the side, yet before my attack landed, I felt my body momentarily become slow, and that window of opportunity was enough for Demigra to hit me with his staff, which I barely managed to block in time. I didn't know what had just happened to me, but when I saw the evil smirk appearing on Demigra's face, I knew he had something to do with it, and from the knowledge I know about Demigra, I figured it had something to do with time-space magic. Tilting my head to the side, dodging Demigra's staff, I reached my hand out to grab it and was about to pull him closer to me, yet when I did so, I felt that same sluggish sensation as previously. However, since I was expecting it, I didn't get taken by surprise. Sage, with the increased perception God Ki gave me, I can tell he is manipulating the time constraints around me to tighten, making time move slower around me. This could be a problem. As the battle waged on, his ability to slightly slow time around me greatly helped him in the fight, allowing him to escape from many attacks that would have caused injury to him, while also giving him a chance to land attacks on me. What made it worse was that I'd been the only one who's taken damage so far during the fight, from Demigra himself and also from my own power. Throwing a punch at Demigra's face, yet like always, right before my attack connected, he slowed time around me and kicked me in the stomach, sending me flying several meters away before I managed to catch myself. Demigra, if this is all you got, then I'm disappointed. I thought you might actually give me a good fight. Never mind, I'll just finish you off right now. Underscore. Hiding behind a decently sized piece of a destroyed building that used to be a part of Tokatoki City, we watched the battle between Demigra and Sage, and even though we couldn't follow their movements when Demigra kicked Sage away, they momentarily stopped moving, allowing us to clearly see both of them. 21. Ugh, this isn't looking good. Sage is the only one injured currently. Vegeta. Sage is fine. Vegeta. What do you mean Sage is fine? Does he look fine to you? Vegeta TSK, what happened to him happened to Kakarot when he first attained SSG, he currently can't properly control his power. Goku so, do you mean this whole time he hasn't been using his full power? Vegeta you saw what he did when he went to confront Demigra, just by flying he was able to tear a hole in the very timeline. Sage has definitely been holding back, however, I just have no idea how much. 21 let's just hope the amount of power he has been holding back is enough to defeat him. After that, we went quiet and continued watching the reality deciding battle. Underscore. Sage hahaha, sorry about that, you see it's my first time using God Ki, and even though I have a lot of knowledge about it, controlling it yourself is quite difficult, especially since my Ki isn't just normal God Ki, it's legendary. But everything's fine now, I've gotten it mostly under control, so I can finally start fighting for real. Patting the area where Demigra kicked me, I stood in a powering up stance and released my full ki, causing the space and time around me and Demigra to instantly get destroyed. However, I made sure not to go too wild as I didn't wish to kill the others. Looking at our surroundings, I noticed we are no longer inside the same dimension, we are now inside the void, the same place where the top was held, a place where time and space don't exist, though since I'm standing here space should exist, but what do I know, I'm not an angel nor am I some genius scientist. Sage ugh, alright that hurt, probably shouldn't have done that, but I needed to move locations, otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to truly fight against Demigra. Ignoring the pain my ki caused me, I focused on Demigra in the distance, who no longer looks as confident as he did before, now he seems to be taking this fight incredibly seriously. Sage I told you, you'll already be dead before my time's up. Smirking along with some blood dripping from my lip, I flash behind Demigra and kick him in the distance, and now since we're in the void, I don't have to worry about him trying to manipulate the time or space around me, which means it comes down to an old-fashioned brawl, something I'm confident I'll lose to no one in. Flying after him, I punched Demigra's face, however, he blocked it with his staff, still, the force from the impact sent him flying in the distance once again. When I reached him again, he had just stopped himself, and I used that chance to flash in front of him and land a vicious elbow in the stomach, causing him to lean forward in pain while following it up with an uppercut. However, I wasn't finished with him, as I grabbed his ankle, and looked up at him while an evil smirk adorned my face. Sage don't know if Kais are biologically the same as Saiyan or human males, but it won't hurt to try. With that, I yank his body down with full force as his crotch lands on my knee while looking at his face to see his reaction, though sadly it seemed like he didn't have any reproductive organs, otherwise, this move alone would have ended the battle. Now I ain't one to fight dirty like that, but if your goal is to erase all of reality, the same reality where my family and friends live, then I don't give a fuck. Although it seemed like getting one-sidedly dominated in the battle had angered him as he violently released his ki, though my instincts had already warned me ahead of time, so I flashed away before he could hit me. Looking at him, I saw him tightly grip his staff while looking at me with eyes filled with fury and madness. Seeing that, I merely laughed before charging right back to him, intending to start the battle once more. As the battle started up once again, I continued having the advantage in the fight, however, now that Demigra knew I was currently stronger than him, he stopped attacking and stayed completely on the defensive, most likely trying to survive until my body destroys itself. When I realized his strategy, I just smirked while forsaking any of my defense, going all out on the offensive, though that could have been a mistake as that did slightly decrease my time limit. However, while I was fighting Demigra, I tried punching him with my left arm, but I realized that I had lost any sensation coming from my left arm, and soon afterward the same had happened to my right leg. Nonetheless, I never once slowed down my attacks since having my body slowly shut down were just reminders to me that my time limit is nearing an end, and in fact, I became even more brutal during the fight. After who knows long, the fight eventually neared its ending, with both Demigra and myself standing tens of meters away from each other. Looking at the heavily injured Demigra across from me with just my one working eye that I can barely even see out of anymore, tried opening my mouth to speak, but I had forgotten I'd lost most sensations throughout my body. If you could see me from a third-person perspective, you would see every limb except for my right arm hanging beside my body limp, while my body is also entirely covered in chunks of organs and blood, mostly my organs and blood. Sage, I've reached my limit, I'm about to die, most of my organs have been destroyed and my heart is barely even beating anymore, but I still haven't killed Demigra yet, hee, I've got one final attack left within me, let's finish him off with it. In the distance, I could see a blurry Demigra making some weird movements with his head. I couldn't deduce what he was doing, but I just assumed he was probably doing some sort of monologue about how he's won, and my instincts were agreeing with me. Moving my almost paralyzed right arm to my side, I start pouring the rest of my God Ki into my hand and begin charging the strongest plasma stream that I've produced. Demigra in distance begins doing the same and converges all of his Ki into a single point as well. After probably half a minute later, we both simultaneously stop charging our final attacks and launch them at each other. Sage Plasma Stream. Demigra - Energy Jet. The moment my Ki wave collided with Demigra's giant Ki sphere, we came to an immediate standstill while the sheer power radiating off at the center of the collision caused distortions in the very void to appear. However, I ignored that as my priority was defeating Demigra right now, as every moment that passed increased Demigra's chances of winning. Sage, I'm going to have to use it. Well, that's fine, at least I know for sure I'll defeat him with this. While still in the Ki struggle with Demigra, I close my one open eye, and picture everything I'm fighting for: Earth, friends, myself, Nala, and most importantly, my little girl Mia, who I had promised I would never allow anything bad to happen to her again. Opening my single eye, I looked directly through all the Ki flying everywhere, and focused solely on Demigra, before channeling in my true power. The moment I did so, I grew slightly in mass along with my hair slightly spiking up, and my Ki greatly increased. Instantly I poured all my Ki into my attack, using so much Ki that it started pouring out from my entire body, as my one hand wasn't enough to expel all of it. Seiya, hi. With the massive amount of Ki I added to the attack, it instantly devoured Demigra's Ki sphere while continuing to charge on its path to Demigra. As my attack arrived near him too quickly, he didn't have enough time to dodge, so he stood his ground and tried blocking the attack, but it was no use, as it quickly enveloped him as well. Several seconds later, when I no longer sensed Demigra's Ki, I stopped attacking, causing my giant Ki wave to dissipate, though the moment I did, I felt my heart explode in my body, informing me I'd reached the end. While lifeless floating in the void, I sensed 21 Kakarot, and both Vegetas arrived near me, though I couldn't see them as my one remaining eye has gone blind. They just floated around me trying to fix my injuries, but it was a wasted effort. I can already see the pathway to the other world forming before me right now. Well, not like I could tell them that. 21 - Congratulations Cupcake, you've defeated Demigra and saved all of reality, though it apparently wasn't easy. Sage, hehe, I do wish I could live though, the Zenkai I would receive would be massive. 21 - Even when you're about to die, that's what you're thinking, you Saiyans truly are some brutes. Sage, whatever, anyways, I'm about to go to heaven, or hell, who knows, not like it matters. Make sure to wish me back to life after a few months. I know Nala is going to be angry and sad that I died just a few months after our family reunited. 21 - Well, even though you're my enemy, I don't mind doing this since it's your dying wish. Besides, I'm about to have a feast with your body. I didn't respond to her as my soul had already left my body floating up to the otherworld pathway. Looking down, I could fully see my incredibly injured corpse about to get devoured by 21 while the other three try stopping it, but it didn't matter as my body started disintegrating before everyone's eyes, much to 21's anger. Sage, hahaha, did she really think I would allow for her to get a meal she didn't work for, greedy fool. Even though I could make my presence known as a soul, I decided to just go to the otherworld, and treat it as a vacation before they wish me back to life, though I'm going to have to deal with that fool Kakarot. Sage, speak of the devil, wouldn't Demigra be considered the devil? Whatever, after that fight, I don't want to think about him anymore. In the distance, I could see a long-ass line of souls, and rarely there will be a soul with an actual body like mine, and Kakarot, who is in the distance. Sage, I don't want to spend a few months alone with this fool. Underscore 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 underscore. Nala dash, where you going, Sage? Sage dash, I'm going to fight 21, want to watch? Mia dash, can I go and watch? Sage dash, yep. Nala dash, ha, you two and fighting, no, I'll be heading over to Bulma's place soon to help with one of her projects, just make sure to keep a safe distance from the battle, Mia. Mia dash, I know mother, now hurry up father, I want to watch. After Nala kissed us both on the cheek, I quickly left the house along with a pushy Mia following behind me, shooting off into the sky. I looked down at the earth below and a slight smile couldn't help but form on my face. It's been 1 year since my fight with Demigra, and 10 months since I was wished back to life. The afterlife vacation wasn't too bad, but it would have been better if Kakarot wasn't trying to fight me all the time. Usually I would comply, but I had enough fighting for a little bit after just defeating Demigra. When I was wished back to life along with Kakarot, Nala was indeed slightly angry, but she had cooled off during my little 2-month vacation, but I was forced to go on some human dates with her. It was annoying, but Nala was enjoying herself, so I stayed quiet. After that everything pretty much returned to how it usually was, before everything went crazy from Mira's arrival. Oh yeah, speaking of Mira, apparently after they broke the crack of time, they appeared near Earth. Since Piccolo was there, they had a fight and he killed him, but what's crazy was after burying their body, their corpses disappeared from the Red Planet a few days later. No one knows who did it, but we're keeping an eye out. Also, the angels, I swear they are some motherfuckers for what they did, but you know what, whenever I think of them I get incredibly angry, so let's quickly change topics. Since the ritual wasn't a complete success, I didn't have any god key when I was brought back to life, which is good, otherwise, I would have died shortly after being brought back to life. Besides, if I ever want god key, I can just do the ritual. However, I don't even know if it's possible without Yumoshi's spirit. Though I'm more interested in seeing how far I can take my mortal key, it's much more challenging that way. Besides, with god key, only the angels can give me a fight, and I don't want to interact with them for quite some time. Mia - Father, pay attention, we've arrived. Snapping out of my thoughts, I look at the surroundings, and realize it's nothing but mountains and desert. Landing on the ground right next to Mia before a large mountain, we both look up only to find 21 standing atop the mountain looking down on us. 21 - Finally, you've arrived, Cupcake, and it seems you've brought little Mia to watch. Must be bring your kids to work day. Sage - Enough with your lousy jokes. 21, since you wanted a rematch so bad, let's start the battle, though I must say you picked one hell of a spot for a battle. 21 - Hee, how could I not pick the place where our first encounter was? I remember toying with you during the battle, fun times I must say. Scoffing at her statement, I motion Mia to step back, and afterward, I get into my fighting position while looking at 21 standing at the top of the mountain. Sage - Come on, I don't have all day, I plan on going to an all-you-can-eat buffet later today. It's free if you can eat more than 5 pounds of food. 21 just rolls her eyes, and gets into her fighting position as well while looking down at me with her sadistic smile. Seeing that, I couldn't help but smile back as well. We stayed like this for a few seconds. It was so quiet you could hear the wind blowing, but then out of nowhere, we vanished from our spots and charged right at each other, both with large smiles on our faces.